It's 3 a.m., you're staring at the ceiling, the room is dark, the house is silent, and you have been awake for 40 minutes that feel like 4 hours. Tomorrow is a workday. You need 8 unbroken hours of sleep or you'll be useless. And right now, you are getting night. You reach for your phone to check the time, and the glow makes it worse. But the real answer to why you are lying there awake right now is far stranger than you'd expect. Most people assume something is broken. Insomnia, stress, too much screen time before bed. That's the obvious answer. It's also incomplete. Your body isn't malfunctioning at 3 a.m. It's running a program older than the wheel, older than farming, older than language itself. For almost the entire span of human history, sleeping in one solid 8-hour block every night wasn't the normal way to sleep. It might have been the unusual. Historian Roger Ekirch spent more than a decade digging through pre-industrial diaries, court records, and medical tech, and he found hundreds of casual references to something called first sleep and second sleep. 2 separate sleep periods in one night, broken up by an hour or so of quiet wakefulness in the middle. People used that gap to pray, talk, or simply lie there in the dark. Nobody panicked about it. Nobody called it insomnia. It was just what night looked like. So maybe the answer really is that simple. Maybe people slept in 2 pieces because the night was long, dark, and there was nothing else to do once the fire burned low. That's the version of this story most people stop at. But that's only half the story, and the second half complicates everything. In 2015, neuroscientist Jerome Siegel led a study tracking the sleep of 3 modern hunter-gatherer and forager-farmer societies: the Hadza in Tanzania, the San in Namibia, and the Tsimane in Bolivia. These are groups with no electricity, no clocks, and almost no artificial light at night. If segmented sleep is the deep ancestral default, these are the people who should be living proof of it. Instead, Siegel found something almost nobody expected. None of the 3 groups reliably split their sleep into 2 distinct blocks. They slept in a single continuous stretch, averaging around 6.5 hours a night, falling asleep a few hours after sunset and waking before sunrise. They also had no word in their own language for insomnia in the way modern English speakers use it. So which one is the real ancestral pattern? Ekirch's broken up first sleep and second sleep, or Siegel's single continuous block? Here's the strange part. Both might be accurate, and the real difference isn't biology at all. It's light, temperature, and what was happening around the sleeper at the time. Sleep isn't one fixed setting your body runs no matter what. It's flexible architecture shaped heavily by environment, and that flexibility, not any single pattern, is the actual ancestral trait. Anthropologist Carol Worthman, who has spent decades studying sleep across dozens of traditional societies, found that pre-industrial sleep almost never looked like a person alone in a quiet, sealed bedroom. It looked social. Multiple people sharing one space, a fire that needed tending, infants who woke and fed through the night, and a rotating, semi-conscious awareness of the group around you. In some of the communities Worthman studied, a parent or grandparent would drift in and out of light sleep, specifically so a crying infant never went unanswered for long, an arrangement so ordinary nobody thought to call it sleep deprivation. Sleep wasn't a clean switch from fully on to fully off. It was layered, shared, and frequently half alert. There's a deeper layer underneath all, and it runs on a clock you can't see. Your body keeps something called a circadian rhythm, an internal 24-hour cycle that tells your organs, hormones, and brain roughly when day is supposed to end and night is supposed to begin. Sleep researcher Charles Cheisler spent decades proving exactly how sensitive that internal clock is to light. Even dim artificial light in the evening is enough to delay the release of melatonin, the hormone that signals to your brain that it's time to wind down. Your ancestors had one light source after dark: fire. And fire is dim, flickering, and orange. Nothing like a phone screen or an overhead bulb. Their melatonin started rising the moment the sun dipped below the horizon. Yours barely starts moving until you finally put the phone down. You're not falling asleep later because you have more willpower or less discipline. You're falling asleep later because you've engineered an environment that tells your hormone it still isn't night yet. There's another piece of this puzzle hiding in broad daylight, and it has nothing to do with nighttime at all. Many traditional societies near the equator, and plenty of pre-industrial cultures across Southern Europe and Latin America, built a structured midday rest directly into the day. What's often called a siesta, a short sleep period taken during the hottest, brightest hours of the afternoon. For a long time, that looked like a cultural habit, something people did because it was simply too hot to work. But sleep scientists studying core body temperature found something more interesting underneath. Human alertness naturally dips in a predictable trough roughly 7 to 8 hours after waking, driven by the same internal clock that regulates nighttime sleep, not by heat alone. The siesta wasn't an invention, it was a culture building its schedule around a biological dip that was already there. The same dip you feel as a heavy, almost involuntary slump at your desk in the middle of the afternoon, right before you reach for more caffeine to override it. Why would a body evolve a sleep system loose enough to fragment, shift, and adjust to fire in infants and group living and midday heat in the first place? Here's where it gets darker than a simple story about different schedules. For most of human history, sleeping meant lying in the open near a low fire, surrounded by animals that hunt after dark. A nervous system that drops completely offline for 8 uninterrupted hours with zero awareness of its surroundings is a nervous system that gets the fragmented, lighter, easily interrupted sleep that shows up across so many traditional and historical populations may not be a flaw at all. It may be a vigilance system, built so that part of the group or part of your own brain stays close enough to the surface to notice danger before it's too late. That reframes the 3 a.m. wake-up complete. It isn't your brain breaking down under modern stress, it might be your brain doing exactly what it was built to do. Surfacing partway through the night, the way it would have around a dying fire 40,000 years ago, checking that everything is still safe before letting you sink back on. There's a piece of evidence for this that almost feels like a controlled experiment running inside real human body. In the early 1990s, psychiatrist Thomas Ware ran a study at the National Institute of Mental Health where he kept a group of volunteers in near total darkness for 14 hours a night, week after week, with no artificial light to interfere. He wasn't trying to recreate ancient sleep. He was studying what darkness alone does to human biology. But within a few weeks, something happened that nobody on his team expected. The volunteers' sleep spontaneously split. They fell into a pattern almost identical to E. Kirch's first sleep and second sleep, a stretch of rest, an hour or so of calm, quiet wakefulness, then a second period of sleep before dawn. Take away modern light and the ancient architecture comes back online by itself, in modern people, within weeks. That's the detail that should change how you think about your own nights. The pattern wasn't trained into those volunteers, nobody taught it to them. It surfaced the moment the modern environment, specifically electric light stretching the day long past sunset, got removed, which means that pattern never actually left. It's still sitting underneath your nervous, suppressed by every lamp, screen, and streetlight around you, waiting for a long stretch of true darkness to resurface. So picture what a single night actually looked like, deep and human. The sun goes down, and with it goes almost all activity, because there's nothing left to do and not enough light to do it. People settle near a fire, in close physical contact with each other, vigilance humming quietly in the background. Sleep comes in waves rather than one block, breaking and resuming, sometimes briefly, sometimes for a stretch long enough to talk in the dark or just lie still and listen to the night. There's no clock telling anyone they should already be asleep by. There's no looming alarm demanding exactly 8 hours. There's only the dark, the fire, the group, and a nervous system built to rest pieces while staying just barely reachable. Now, picture your bedroom, a door that locks, curtains that block out every trace of moonlight, a phone glowing on the nightstand at 11 p.m. because your body doesn't know the difference between scrolling and danger, between blue light and daylight. You're alone, or close to alone, in total silence, in total darkness, expected to drop into 8 consecutive hours of unconsciousness on command, every single night, on a strict external schedule that has nothing to do with sunrise or sunset. You've removed the fire, you've removed the group, you've removed the natural light cues your hormones evolved to read. And then you call it a disorder when your ancient nervous system, the one shaped across hundreds of thousands of years of half-alert nights, quietly refuses to comply on command. Think about the next time you wake at 3 a.m. and instantly reach for your phone to check how much sleep you've lost. Nothing has actually gone wrong. Somewhere underneath the part of you that's irritated about the alarm clock and tomorrow's meeting, a much older system has just finished a routine check. No predator at the edge of camp, no fire that needs feeding, no infant that needs settled. Clear, safe, back on. Think about the sleep tracker on your wrist, quietly scoring last night a 62 out of 100 because you stirred twice and didn't hit 8 hours. It's measuring you against a target that barely existed for most of human history, a fixed nightly number invented by factory shift schedules and school bell, not by your biology. Think about the afternoon slump you fight off with a second coffee at 2 p.m., the one that hits at almost exactly the same hour every single day. That's not laziness creeping in. That's the same circadian dip that built the siesta, showing up uninvited in a world with no room left for it. Your ancestors didn't fight that dip, they laid down in the shade and let it pass. The 3 a.m. wake-up isn't evidence that something in you is broken. It's evidence that something in you is extremely old and extremely well preserved. It's not malfunctioning, it's patrolling. It's 3 a.m., you're staring at the ceiling, and now you know why.